Welcome to Candid Conversations over Coffee. I'm your host, Tracy Hill. And listen, I am so excited about today's show because with me today, we have the one, the only Latonia Monroe-Naylor. Listen, she's an author. She's a public servant. She's a mom. She's a first lady, a business owner. I mean, just a jack of all trades, and I'm so excited about having her. Not only that, but we also got a music video by gospel recording artist Chappella Rabess. But right now, please help me and welcome Latonia Monroe-Naylor. Hey, how are you?
I'm well, and you?
Listen, I'm so excited. I'm doing great. And I'm so excited that you're here with me today. So, I mean, again, I just can't thank you enough. But right now, since this is Candid Conversations over coffee, we're going to step away. We're going to go grab some coffee. Now, I know you don't drink coffee.
Nope.
So I know you drink tea. So instead of Candid Conversations over coffee, we're going to call this segment Candid Conversations over coffee and tea. All right?
Sounds good to me.
So listen, we're going to step away for a minute and we'll be back with Latonia Monroe-Naylor. So stay tuned. Thank you and welcome back to Candid Conversations over Coffee. Again, those that's just tuning in, I'm here with Latonia Monroe-Naylor. Listen, before we get started, tell us a little bit, for those who don't know who Latonia Monroe-Naylor is, tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, wow. That's a loaded question right there. We're ready to jump right in. Right. I'm a mom, as you said. My children, Naomi, Patience, Madi, and Melody, those are my loves of my life. I just do everything that I do for them. Okay. And then I've been married to Pastor Naylor now for well over 20 years.
Wow,
and so
20 years?
Yes. Wow. So I think we're going on 24 this year.
Wow.
And we're in ministry together now. He officially started pastoring a few months ago. Right. And I just love having them in my life and just being my inspiration. I've co-founded a nonprofit called Parent Villages. Yes. And that is just growing up. It's just growing, helping so many people in the community in Springfield area and even beyond. And I just consider myself to be somebody who God called to evangelize beyond the four walls. Right. And I use my business, I use my public servant work that I do. Anything that I do, I think of it as I'm doing it unto the glory of God.
Wow, that's awesome. Now, when you talk about you and your husband just starting your ministry a few months ago,
yes,
tell us a little bit about your ministry, the name of your ministry.
Dwelling Place Church.
Dwelling Place.
And we have Blessed Life Ministries, which is our outreach arm of our work that we do, and I just love watching my husband just do what he does, go forth. I teach on Fridays, so I do the fellowship Fridays and stuff like that. But it's just a blessing to have all of our children working with us together in ministry. Yes, my mom is our church mom. She's the first one to join the church beyond my immediate family. And we're growing over there in Sumner Ave here in Springfield. So I am just excited about what God is doing.
Okay. Now, for those that's interested in attending services at Dwelling Place Ministries, you say you're on Sumner Avenue. Give us the address.
We are at 361 Sumner Avenue. Okay. We're renting space from a larger church. We are new. We just started in January, and we have services on 3 days a week. So on Tuesday nights we have what we call Talk Together Tuesday. It's like our Bible study, and we break down the word and get really a understanding of what it is. And the young people are there; they're asking questions. We're all talking and conversing about the word. Fridays we have Fellowship Friday, so we dig into different workshops. And like right now we're doing spiritual wealth planning and kind of breaking down like how do you really plan for spiritual growth and development, because most people think of it as I just go to church on Sundays and I'm gonna be better. It's like no, you got to be intentional, just like you are with a business, just like you are with anything you do. You got to be that intentional about your spiritual growth as well. So I'm kind of breaking that down right now. So that's cool on Fridays, and of course Sundays is Sunday worship, and we have services at 11:15 on Sundays.
Okay, awesome. Now, we talked about the ministry.
Yes.
Let's talk about Latonia, the public servant.
Yes.
Okay. And the business owner.
Yes.
Because now, so how is it that you're able in a 24-hour day, how are you able to get all of that in? I mean, being a business owner, being a mom, being a first lady at a new ministry. being a public servant? How are you able to kind of balance all of that in 24 hours?
Well, first of all, I can always say that I don't think I balance. I feel like it's more of harmony.
Right.
Because
I like that.
Sometimes it feels like I'm not in balance and I'm like, oh my God, like what's happening? Because I have so many obligations, and sometimes you don't plan for something, an emergency arises, kind of thing. So I always feel like it has to have harmony. But the reason why I'm able to do it is because I've been very intentional about what I allow into my space. And it's taken me a while to kind of focus in on what things really are a part of the call that God has on my life, and which things are things that people just want me to be a part of because they think I'll be good for it or something like that. So it could definitely cause you to be pulled in a lot of different directions if you're not focused. And so my calendar is everything to me, because if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't happen.
Right.
My sister was like, you going to that podcast today? Like, yes, you put it on my calendar, I will be there. That's the way it has to be. But I have learned through trial and error, through heartbreak, how to really identify, with what it is that God wants me to do. Because what I used to do when I was younger is I would let people pull me into the point where I would burn out and have all kinds of stuff happening. And so I feel like, how do you squeeze that into 24 hours knowing that God plans for you to do these things? First of all, is number one. And then planning it out during the week and saying, hey, here's what I have to do. I have to commit to this. I have to commit to that. This is very important to me. This is not as important. Is this a priority for me to do today? So I'm just every day being very strategic about what I'm submitting myself to and what I'm committing my time to. And I am very intentional also about working in self-care. Because if you're not careful, you will forget about the prayer part, you'll forget about the word part, you'll forget about going to get your nails done sometimes, or relaxing and watching a movie because you get caught up in the hustle and bustle. So that's not a clear probably response, but it is how I'm able to create that harmony where I feel like I'm not overwhelming myself.
Well, it sounds, to me, it's very clear, because it's basically about having balance.
Yes.
The scripture says, above all things, I wish that you prosper, be in health, even as your soul prospers.
Absolutely.
So that means that God wants us to have balance in our life. And, it shows when you talk about your daily tasks that you go through in the 24-hour period. There is a balance that I see, that you're able to do all these things. Now, when we talk about public service, now I know you're part of the school committee.
I am. Okay. I am.
Now, how do you kind of like balance that? Because, of course, in this society, we there's a lot of pull for you to have a belief in, some things that you may not totally agree about. But, as a Christian,
I know exactly what you're saying.
Okay, you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying. And to be honest, I always look at the sense of it. Because everything that God did is in decency and in order.
Exactly.
And a lot of times what people do is they make everything about religion instead of about God's principles.
Exactly.
And so I will say to people stuff like, when people have children make decisions that they shouldn't be making personally, I'm like, well, you're the parent. The parent's supposed to parent. God called you to parent. So when I'm thinking about the things that I will allow my kids to do or not do, I'm always thinking, is this something that my child might look back on and say, you were responsible for me? Why did you let me make this choice if you knew I wasn't old enough or did not have enough wisdom to make this choice? And so I look at those things through that kind of a lens of common sense. And so whenever somebody tries to put something on the table for us to vote on or for us to do, if to me it doesn't make sense, then I go to that point of sense. It's not about a God thing or religion thing. It's about a sense thing. And if it doesn't make sense to me, I'm going to explain to you why it doesn't make sense. And it's not my feeling, it's the reality.
I like that.
Right? And so a lot of times as Christians, we get caught up in the belief and we forget that God has a reason for why he did everything. He's not a ambiguous God. He's not an imagination or a magician. He is sensible. Like people are still trying to figure out the science of things that God did 2,000 years ago. But now they're seeing like, wow, this really did happen. I know it happened because the word said it happened. But now they're starting to be able to put the pieces together to say, wow, Jericho really did happen, or the Red Sea really did happen. Like it was parted. They see the evidence of it. It's not just a story, So I believe in the word, and I just stand on it, knowing that God will give me the wisdom of how to present it, how to say it, and how to follow through, because I am not going back on my word.
Right, and that is awesome. Now, one thing that sticking with the school board committee. Now, of course, we've all heard, and it's been on the news about they're looking to hire someone, or looking for someone to replace the current superintendent. And I've known there's been a lot of media coverage concerning that. There was actually a media coverage I seen a couple of days ago. I believe Mayor Cerno was talking about that there wasn't any students that signed up to take part of that particular search.
The screening committee.
Yes. He didn't know if it was because it was a 1-month commitment. Then I actually seen on the news earlier this morning that some of the school committee decided not to attend some of these meetings. For what reason, I don't know. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely, because I was one of the school committee members.
All right, come on now. All right.
So 4 of us decided, it's a 7-person board, and 4 of us decided to boycott the meeting on Thursday because we asked for some items to be put on the agenda, things that we were concerned about, but the public clearly requested. So when we had our last few public input meetings for the superintendent search, there were things that folks asked for, such as wanting to make sure that a student was on the nominating committee or screening committee, and that they also wanted to make sure that the screening committee got to see all of the applications. And so what happened at some point is that the attorney who's overseeing the process took names out of the pool and said these people are not going to be viewed by the screening committee, and nobody knew why. Nobody knew what the details of it were. We didn't know as a school committee body, and the screening committee were not provided with that information. And they are saying we should be able to see all of the applicants. And we absolutely agreed with them that if they're screening, they should be the ones to screen out, not one person deciding who they want to screen out. And so throughout some process of information getting out, it became clear to us that people knew who those people were in the pool, and nobody was supposed to know, and it was supposed to be confidential. So we requested that we have these things added to the agenda so that we could, as a body, discuss it, because we didn't want to violate open meeting law by having conversations outside of the body. And we were told no on 2 occasions at least, from the subcommittee person who's over the ad hoc committee, and then the vice chair went to put it on the general board meeting, which he has the authority to do, and our mayor and our superintendent said no. And the superintendent stepped outside of his role by deciding that that would not be put on the agenda, because that is not for him to do. And so we decided to make it known to the public that these things are happening, because what tends to happen is we fight these battles and it's behind closed doors and nobody knows. And they're judging all of us for the decisions made by 1 or 2 people. And we wanted to make it clear to people that we hear them, we read the emails, we received the calls, and we are standing with our community, and we expect our community to stand with us. And many people have already reached out letting us know that they are standing in solidarity with us, and however we move forward, they are with us. And that's what we're going to continue to do.
And I appreciate you being transparent. I appreciate you even talking about that and bringing out into the forefront, because a lot of people wonder, like, okay, why are this particular person, or why is this particular school committee person is not saying nothing, especially when it comes to the Black and brown community. So I really appreciate you, clarifying and clearing that up. Now, what do you think that going forward, how vital is it important for the students to be involved in this superintendent search?
Listen, the students are the ones that have to be in the recipient end. They are at the end of the day, the client. Right? In the business model of a school, they are the client. And if they are not happy, their voices need to be heard. If they are happy, their voices need to be heard. If they have solutions or ideas, their voices need to be heard. And when we first had it put to us that these are the slate of people that are in the nominating committee, I was the one who said, why aren't any students on it? And they said, oh, well, no students applied. And I said, well, why don't we go to our student advisory council and just have them put somebody on? Because there's about 10 kids, I think, that sit on that. One of them can sit on the nomination or screening committee. And I was talked down, oh, we can't do that, but we'll include them in the public speak out. So fine, okay. But I wasn't satisfied with it, but I knew I wouldn't get the votes to pass it. So I just said, well, at least I made it known that I'm concerned about this. And other folks were of the same mindset, that if no student applied, the students must not have known that they were able to apply. Because not 1 out of 25,000 of our kids decided to apply. That doesn't make sense, especially when they've been so vocal over the last year coming to our speak outs all the time, at least one of them would have been interested. So I found it hard to believe that the students would think that this opportunity was for them and not apply for it.
Okay. So do you think it's actually too late for students to kind of go out and be part of this particular?
I think for this particular screening committee that there's a process in place that we're looking at. We haven't made any final decisions as to what we're going to do because we haven't been able to meet to discuss it.
Right.
But I do think that it is important that our students be welcomed and invited to engage, and that we will make sure happens before we get another superintendent. That I can say with certainty.
Okay. Now, as far as superintendents, I don't know if you can kind of touch on it, but what if you could speak for the school board committee? What are the kind of the not qualifications, but some of the characteristics that they're looking for a new superintendent for Springfield Public Schools? What would you like? What type of
what you would like? I'm glad you asked me that question because some people have a different opinion, but of what I gathered from the community speak outs and even from myself is that we want somebody who is a team player. We want someone who has an understanding of what folks in the Black and brown community deal with, because we're a majority minority city, and our schools are even of a higher number of minorities in the schools. And so to be in a school system that has almost 91% of kids of color and not ensure that we have curriculum, and not ensure that we have a culture, not ensure that we have practices in place that reflect an understanding of the cultures that we're dealing with is to me very problematic. And so having someone who can be a part of changing that system that we currently have in place, making sure that things are not just theoretical, but that they're practical, that we see it in operation in every building, not some buildings. That is what I know I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody who's willing to work with the school committee and not against us, understanding that we all have a stake in this, and not saying that we want somebody who's going to just listen to us and let us dictate to them, because nobody wants to do that. But being able to say, hey, you know what, Latonia, you do have certification in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Maybe we should invite you in to give us some guidance as to what you think about what we should do here. Versus we already know what we're doing and we don't need you, which is the feeling that I've received in in several years, that whenever I speak on things that I have expertise in, it's not necessarily something that's welcomed.
Wow. Listen, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I hope
this is the way it is, and it's so funny because most people don't know. Like I told you before, I'm an open book, and I share. If somebody asks the right question, I'm going to answer it. And but so many times people don't ask these questions because they assume they already know how it works, and then when they start to find out, they're like, "This doesn't seem right to me," and it's like, yeah, because it's not.
Well, I mean, I really appreciate you, talking to me about that. But we're going to move on, and we're going to talk about you mentioned something about being an open book.
Yes.
And what we're going to talk about when we come back after this break is your book.
Yes.
And let me go and see that right there real quick. We're going to talk about her new book, Mission Rich, Profit Powered. Yes. And we'll be right back after these brief messages with Latonia Monroe-Naylor. We'll be right back. Thank you so much.
A company is only as good as its employees and vice versa. That's why job seekers and businesses have turned to the Image Group for the past 10 years. We are dedicated to identifying top talent and connecting them with your organizations. Contact the Image Group for your staffing needs.
And again, I'm here with Latonia Monroe-Naylor. And listen, we're going to talk about her book, and it's awesome. Mission Rich and Profit Powered, a guide to transforming passion work into a fully funded business. Listen, if you haven't gotten this book, I think you need to run out and go and order it. And you can get it, I'm sure, on Amazon and other digital platforms where all books and Kindles books are sold.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about Mission Rich and Profit Powered.
So this book is really a simplified way to look into the window of my life and try to understand how is it that I've been able to take a nonprofit, from a $500 investment to a $500,000 business in less than 5 years. How I was able to start a consulting business and hit six figures before 2 years, and show people that these concepts that I use, these frameworks, are things that regardless of where you come from, no matter what you do, when you walk in by faith and not by sight, it's not just enough to say that I believe God is able, but faith without works is dead. So what kind of work?
You better go ahead. You better preach. No.
So what kind of work do we need to put in? Right? And that is what Mission Rich and Profit Powered is about. It's like we as people of God have this overflowing and overwhelming ability to want to give and want to do. But most of us have a very difficult time with making money. We just do. It's just a reality. We think we're supposed to give it away. We let people take advantage of us. We feel like we have to sacrifice, and we're not doing it right if we're not tired and exhausted and wore out. And what I talk about here is that those are complexes that we have to really tear down. Those are strongholds that we have to tear down and then put in place a proper mindset based on God's word. And when we do that, we will find ourselves in a place where we are profit powered, which means that you are attracting funds. You get to a place where people will call you and say, I want to work with you. I want to invest in you. I want to give you a grant. And that's what I bring folks on that journey to do that.
Now, so I know you touched on, believers, Christians, and I see that a lot.
Yes.
And God has blessed us and has given us the tools.
Yes.
Because He said in His Word that we should be that we are the head and not to tell, above only and not believe. And I know sometimes we can put a praise on it, we can dance, we can shout, but when it comes to walking out in real faith and
Absolutely.
walking, because like you said, faith without works are dead. How are people, believers, able to transform their mind and say, look, I'm just a servant of the Lord, and since Jesus was just a servant, I want to be a servant, I want to be broke, and not saying they will, not people, I don't think nobody is saying they want to be broke.
No, they don't say it, but their actions say it. Actions speak louder than words.
There you go. So how So to me, it tells this book is like transforming people's minds.
Absolutely. I literally help people to tap into what is their strong why. Right. That's what I call it, a strong why. A lot of times you hear people say, what's your why? And I don't believe in just having a why because I have a whole lot of whys. Right. And if I follow all of them, I'll be wore out and burnt out. But if I tap into what's the strong why, what's the thing that really overwhelms me that I know I have to do, how do I identify what that is? And then now once I have that passion and internalize that, I can build around that and I can monetize that. And so there's this framework I talk about in the book, ABCD framework, and it's actionable and activatable passion, bankable time, capacity to balance work and life, and then delivering with empathy and excellence. And so when you put that framework together, no matter what you're doing, whether it's ministry, your family, nonprofit, your for-profit business, you will excel because all of those elements make you marketable, make you self-aware, make you well-rounded and balanced. And anybody who is living a harmonious life is happy. Like you can have problems with your bank account, and if your family life is good, you good. Like you like, I know my wife got my back, I know my husband got my back, or whatever. I know my kids got my back. Then you can take on the world. But when you're struggling and mad in your marriage, kids not happy, cutting up, then it drains you. So even if you have $1 million in the bank, you still feel like you're losing, And so I really want people to understand that being successful in business is not about the money. It's not about the bottom line. It's about every aspect of you feeling fulfilled. And so that's what the book talks about, like this overwhelming ability to have mission be rich in your life, not mission poor where you feel like it's dragging you down, or profit poor where you feel like you got all these things going on but you're struggling and pulling pennies together. God doesn't want us to have that. Now that doesn't mean you don't have a time period of struggle, but that shouldn't be for your whole life, And most of the time, unfortunately, when we grew up in church, that's what we saw. We thought everybody had to struggle. Everybody had to be on Section 8 because nobody could make it, because nobody could do. And it's like, wait a minute, that's not God. God is not in this.
It doesn't even line up with His word.
It doesn't. How many times did Jesus talk about money more than He talked about anything else? So it's not that because He wasn't wealthy air quotes, because he was very wealthy, but on earth, he didn't have a mansion and all of that kind of stuff, but he was still wealthy. How was he still wealthy? Because he understood the more important things in life. And so when we understand how to value the important things in life and balance that with this idea of having a business, then we are completely in a position where we can just flourish. So that's what it's about.
So for those that's watching and those that reach out to your consulting company or look to reach out, because there might be someone that's saying, Latonia, I want to do and I believe what you're saying, but I just can't get up. What do you tell those people that's frustrated because they have the ability to get up, they just can't get up. Maybe they're just stuck. What do you tell them? And kind of like coach them and help them out.
Well, the first thing I would say is buy my book.
Right.
Buy the book, y'all.
Buy the book.
The reason why I say that is because it's only $20, right? And it's a way for you to get started on the path of building that mindset. And I have a workbook that actually goes with it as well, where people can kind of work through all the frameworks and different stuff in the different chapters. But the reason why that is so important is that if you're not willing to open up a book and read a page or two, you're not willing to be consulted, you're not willing to start a real business and have it flourish. And so a lot of times we have this mindset that we want something for nothing. We think, oh, I prayed for it, God's going to do it, and I'm going to sit here and all of a sudden it's going to happen. No, you cannot. It can't be like that. So yes, you might feel stuck, but the reality is it's only in your mind. You're not stuck. All you got to do is start here where you're at with what you can do. And I promise you, from the time you open up the first page, and I don't only say that because I wrote it, people have told me this. This is the reviews that I get from people who have read the book. They're like, once you open it, you don't want to put it down because there's so much power that comes through somebody going through a struggle and God being with them and transforming their life through the process. Like I talk about how I got shot in the book, and that was like a pivotal moment in my life, but it wasn't the only pivotal moment that I had. And I talk about those pivotal moments in my book. So it's not like one of those books where I just tell you, here's how you get a grant. Here's how that's part of it. But my journey of how I learned those things is what makes people really want to gravitate to this book, because they realize that they're a person and I'm a person. They go through struggles. I went through struggles. My struggles could have kept me down, could have caused me to give up. Their struggles could keep them down and cause them to give up, but they don't have to do that. I didn't do it. They don't have to. Like, there's nothing special about me except God working on the inside, giving me the strength and the ability to keep the mindset and say, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And if people believe that, then they got it and gone. Like that, I want people to understand this is not, I never like it when people come to me and talk to me as if like I'm this person that is, I don't know, like a surreal person. Like, no, I am a real person. I go through real things. I cry real tears just like everybody else. The difference is I know who I am. I know whose I am. I know that God is the one that shaped me and made me in his image, and that he's the one that allows me to do what I do. And when people walk in that anointing and walk in that belief, there's nothing that can stop you.
No, nothing at all.
Nothing
at all. And one thing that this scripture came to my mind because that's since we compassed about by a great crowd of witnesses, and you being the witness of what God can do. And God is not a respecter of person. If he did it for you, if he did it for me, he can do it for you.
Absolutely.
And one thing I want to touch on also that you mentioned in the book and that you just mentioned about being shot. Now, tell us a little bit about that, because that didn't get you stuck and just like, oh, you know what, my life is over. Tell us about that moment in your life.
So the key thing that people have to know about this is I was only 16 years old when this happened to me. And I had lived such a rough life by the time I was 16. And I remember just being a very angry person a lot because I had been through so much and I didn't understand. I felt God had forsaken me. And though I knew of him and I heard of him, I still felt like he didn't really care about me that much. And so when I went through this situation, I was leaving the studio. I used to rap, and that was my outlet.
You used to rap?
I used to rap.
Go on now.
And I was leaving the studio that night. I did. I ain't gonna do it today. I don't know. I might do it today. I might try to remember one or two. But I remember that when I was leaving the studio that night, my friend and I were walking, and these guys came out of the dark, and they tried to jump on him, and the bullet went off. I got shot in the chest. And when I got shot, it was so painful, and I was laying on the ground, and I was seeing like lights and all this stuff, and I thought I was dying, didn't know if I was alive, what was happening. I didn't understand, but I knew like this is serious, whatever's going on. And when the ambulance came, I was going in and out, and I got down there, and I remember seeing my grandmother, who was pastoring at the time still, Pastor Davis, Overseer Davis, and she was standing out there, and I'm like, and then I went out again, and then I woke up, and I remember her being near me in the room and all that, and she said, I was praying for you all day today. The Lord had me calling out your name in noonday prayer from the time I started. And my grandma was a praying woman. She would pray everywhere, courthouse, wherever you name it, she was there praying. And she said, for the whole hour, the Lord had me calling on your name, asking the angels to protect you, to keep you. And I didn't understand it, but the Lord said, go down to the emergency room. And I came. And this is why. As she got into the emergency room, they were pulling up with me. And she saw that why God had her praying for me. And I remembered at that moment understanding like God didn't forget about me. Like, although I don't understand why I'm going through what I'm going through, he remembered me enough that he didn't want to let me go yet. And I remember crying out, Lord, I'm not fit to live and I'm not fit to die. I don't even know where that came from. But that was the cry in me when I was feel like I was dying at that moment. And so fast forward, I went through a very tough few years before I actually surrendered to Christ. So it wasn't like I got, protected by the Lord and all of a sudden I'm running on with Jesus. Like I tried it for a few months, but I still didn't have the mindset. Right. And when I was 19, I went through some things and I remember saying, Lord, if you give me the mind to be saved, I'll do it. And one day I went to church. I went to Easter service. My grandmother was preaching. And after that, I never looked back. And I've been with God now. That was 19. I'm 44 now. People in your show get to know how old I am. I hope y'all say I don't look it. But I remember, like, to think about it 25 years ago, that I've been with God and I've been with Jesus. And I love him more than I did when I met him, and so, but that didn't stop me from going through things. I went through so many things in my life and my journey with Christ, just learning to understand him, build a relationship with him. And these are the things that helped me to get where I am now, where I can tell people like, this is how I got over. This is how I got through what I got through. And how you're going to be able to get through what you need to get through. You may not do it the same way I did it, but these principles can help you because they're built on the foundation of Christ. And he is our chief cornerstone. Yes, he is. No other foundation can be laid than that has already been laid, which is in him. And so I'm not trying to reinvent anything. I'm not trying to lay another foundation. I'm just saying to people, this is the foundation. And if we build on it according to these principles that align with his word, you will be all right. And God will give you the favor. He will put that favor on you as a shield, as he talks about in Psalms 5. And he will make sure that people see you and people find you and people look for you because you are doing it his way.
Yes, his way.
His way, not my way, not your way, but God's way.
And I'm a living witness because I've tried to do things my way.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's just a joy when Christ is leading your life. And,
absolutely.
Your trust and we're not sufficient of ourselves, but our sufficiency is of God.
Absolutely.
And it just leaves you in awe when you just yield to the Lord's will and his way. He just begin to open the doors.
Absolutely.
You talked about the favor and things of that nature. Now, speaking of favor, let's talk about the blessings that the Lord has bestowed you to be a help to people.
Yes.
With Parent Villages. Tell us about that nonprofit.
Yeah, so Parent Villages is my baby. It's like a toddler now. It's like 5 years old, 6 years old. What do you call that? I think that's a little bit higher than a toddler now. But it is so funny because we always say it's a bougie toddler because we just take such good care of Parent Villages. And so we founded Parent Villages in 2019. As I mentioned, it was co-founders, myself, Paige Monroe, Cindy Gaynor-Harper, and Ayana Crawford. And I had just won my school committee campaign, and a woman presented to us at the school committee meeting and said 7% of our kids were ready for kindergarten. And I was like, 7 or 70. She said 7. I said, so 93% of our kids aren't ready for kindergarten? And she said, yeah. And I was just like floored. So I went back to the women that helped me run my campaign, which are the ones I just mentioned. And I said, we got to do something. I said, let's start something. And they said, what is it? I said, let's call it Parent Villages. They like, okay, whatever. And we just got on board and we started doing all these meetings. And what we found was that it wasn't enough to just do community meetings. So in 2018, we actually started with like these community gatherings kind of things, meeting in the community rooms, libraries, stuff like that. But what ended up happening was a year later, we said we couldn't do that anymore because that wasn't enough. Only people like us were showing up in the room, and there's nothing wrong with us, except we were the ones who had the 7%. Our kids was in school reading and doing what they needed to do. The 93% were not coming to the meetings, and we didn't understand why we couldn't connect to them. So we went back and we started doing our research, and then we created these programs to start drawing in people that were from that, their kids were in the 93%. And now 5 years later, here we are, we have an office downtown in Springfield, and we have staff, we have full-time staff, part-time staff. Last year we serviced over 700 individuals. We provided 58 individuals with long-term consistent care, casework kind of work with them. We help people if they need a place to stay, if they need food, if they're hungry, they need clothing. We make sure that they have the resources that they need. But the wonderful thing about it, and this is what makes Parent Villages so special, is we have this motto, transforming lives 2 generations at a time. And we literally have workshops for our young people and for our parents around entrepreneurship, buying homes, financial literacy, starting a business, advocacy, anything you can think of. It could be art. It could be screening, T-shirt screening, whatever they call that. It can be podcasting and how do you do a podcast or whatever. And we work with all these different organizations to make it happen. And we bring in the experts. We don't try to do everything on our own. We bring in the experts and we say, hey, can you come in and do a class on this for our people? They really want to learn about that. And so I love that we don't just meet people in their state of trauma, but we also show people of the hope of what can be. Like, you're in a state of survival right now, but we're going to help you to get to a place of thriving because this is where you belong. You don't need to work 3 jobs. And this is what most people are doing. They're working 3 jobs, trying to make it work to pay a $2,000 rent, And we're like, no, let's help you get 1 job so you can be home with your family and be able to raise your kids the way you want to and stuff like that. And so it's great. I love it. And it makes me so excited to see like you can birth something, and as we're watching it grow, and it's impacting the lives of so many people positively. And it's my ministry. Like, I really embrace it as my ministry. Like, we're praying with people. People come to the meeting, they don't even know. We praying before we eat. We praying before we do this. We praying after the board meeting, before the board meeting. Like, that's what we do because we're not a faith-based organization, but we are a faith-led organization.
Yes. And it's a blessing to
be a
blessing, isn't it?
It is.
It's awesome. Now, for those that's watching and they're like, look, I want to be part, or how can I reach out because I need some help from Parent Villages. Now, you did mention that you are downtown Springfield. Is there contact information? Absolutely.
So there's parentvillages.org, which is our website. And then we also have 413-301-8121. 413-301-8121. And social media. We're on social media. So at Parent Villages, follow us and learn more about us. Most of our stuff is in person, but we have hybrid things as well. And we can connect with people locally, but also if someone is afar and they're like, and that's happened before when people have reached out and they're like, I'm in Atlanta, but I need help and I don't understand how to do this and that. And we'll work with them too and talk to them and give them some guidance. So we're not limited to just people from Springfield.
And that's amazing.
Yeah.
And congratulations. If I can use the word congratulations, but it's just like I said, it's just a blessing. And, and I thank God for people like you, and your staff and the other, the co-founders, for just being out and wanting to be a help to other people because, me in my profession as well, I see a lot of different families and people struggle in different areas. Either it's mental health or behavioral health with the pediatric patients I work with. But a lot of families are just struggling in different areas, but having
Right.
some, organization like Parent Villages to say, hey, listen, I'm here to help. I'm here to
Absolutely.
be there for you. We understand, and no questions asked. We just, out there with a helping hand.
Yes.
So that's just amazing. Now I want to talk about Latonia Monroe-Naylor Consulting.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So this is so funny, right? I have been doing consulting work for people for like, good Lord, my daughter just turned 18. So the second one, I always remember because I was pregnant with her when I did my first nonprofit. And I co-founded a nonprofit while I was pregnant with her. And I can remember doing grants and all of that, like leading up to that nonprofit. And there were so many things that I did not know what the heck I was doing at all. I was all over the place. And it's like I had it in my head. I knew what I thought I wanted, but I didn't know how to accomplish it. And nobody that I went to would ever really help us. It was like, oh, I'll help you get a grant done, but never do it. Oh, I'll help you do this, but never do it. And you're waiting and you're waiting. And so I remember just going through this phase where it was like, okay, I feel like I'm constantly this circle trying to fit into a square because I know there's these things that need to happen, but I don't know how to make it happen. And I wasn't in charge of the organization, so I couldn't tell people like this is how you have to do it, and nobody would listen to me. So I'm like, okay, well this didn't work out too well. That organization didn't really flourish the way that I knew that it probably could have. And so I went back to the drawing board and I went back to school and I got my master's degree in nonprofit management and philanthropy. So I coupled that with my bachelor's in business. And once I did that, the floodgates kind of opened for me. My mentor, God rest her soul now, Mrs. Dora Robinson, she took me in for an internship. And I remember following her around and going to board meetings. And she said, girl, you know why I got you doing this? And I said, no. She said, because you're going to be doing this one day. You're going to be the boss one day, girl. So I got to show you how CEOs work. And I'm like, okay, I don't see it right now, but And this was 2012. And 2013, I'm working with her at the United Way. And I'm learning like how a big, prosperous nonprofit operates, how the funding works. I got to a place where I was actually running all the grant programs and understanding how these things work. And so now I have people calling me, asking me for input, and I'm doing pro bono for them. And I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm flourishing, going through leadership programs, just all these kinds of things, right? And I'm kind of tiptoeing through things because there's so much that happened during that 10-year period. But ultimately what ended up happening at the end was I was burning myself out because I was helping so many people. And to be frank, this is how people are. They'll ask you for advice. They'll ask you to do something. And then they won't even tell you thank you. They won't even tell people you helped them. They'll act like they don't even know you when you see them. And I'm just like, how is it that you're just getting, like, I'm not saying you have to get up publicly and tell people like, oh yeah, Latonia helped me. Like, you don't have to do that, but can you at least show me some respect when you see me and like wave, acknowledge you know me? Yeah, like it's all me. I did it myself. Right. So okay, well you keep on doing it yourself. I want to answer your phone call next time. Right. Lord forgive me. I answered the call. So I really got to this place where my sister-in-law said to me, Latonia, you are too talented. You have to like step out on faith and start your own business. And I was like scared. It took me 2 years to finally get the nerve to step out on faith after she said that to me. But I gave my notice at my job. I gave them a 4-month notice. Now I want to stress this because a lot of times people get a vision from God and then they jump and move and they just do stuff quickly. I had a 4-month notice because I had things I wanted to make sure I wrapped up before I left that job. And I always want to sew right. So I wanted to make sure the audit was done, the grant that I was applying for, that it had been submitted, like all these things had been done before I left my position. And I made sure I left on good terms because I'm sowing this into the atmosphere. It's not about the individual, it's about me reaping what I sow. And so I do that, and lo and behold, the opportunity unfolded for me to work with my nonprofit that I love, Parent Villages, and they wanted to hire me as a consultant to bring the organization to the next place. And so that is where I got my big break. So I was able to do a 2-for-1. I was able to do the thing I love, which was my nonprofit, but also being able to start to build my consulting business. And so that is when I started bringing in other clients. And history kind of speaks for itself because that's where the book came from. And so now I'm doing coaching, I'm doing classes. I actually have a grant masterclass coming up. It's around strategy because a lot of people want to learn about grant writing, but you can't get grant funding if you don't have a strategy. You can write grants all day and never get one, but if you have a strategy, that's how you get the money. And so I teach people the technicality, like here's what you need to know for grants, but here's how you create a strategy so that you will get people reaching out to you to give you money. And so every year I've made at least $60,000 that was unsolicited. That was money I didn't look for, that people called me and said, here's some money I want you to apply for. Just do the application and we'll give you the funding. Because they see the work that we do and they know that we're going to carry it out and all of that. And that's what you want when you have a grant strategy. You don't want to just write grants just to be wasting time and you're not getting any money. So I break that down, like how do you go to this place of not having to get into a place of overflow where God is going to anoint you in a way of speaking so that you're now attracting dollars and you're not begging. Right. Because we beg for pennies and God's like, I got more than pennies for you if you just sit down and do it the right way. And that's what I teach people in my classes. So all of these things came out of my consulting business, but I never would have got that opportunity if I didn't just step out, and Pure Villages wouldn't be where it is. My consulting business wouldn't be where it is if I didn't have the opportunity to just step out and under God's anointing, being able to do the work that I'm doing.
Right. Well, since we only got a few more minutes, let me ask you this. Yes. When you start talking about grant strategies, does those strategic strategies, is it based on what type of nonprofit that you're trying to establish? Does that make a big difference, or
it does, but it doesn't? Okay. So the reason why I say that is because when you go back to the frameworks work regardless of what type of organization that you have. And so at the end of the day, like one thing, for example, that I talk about in the book, and I actually talk about in the strategy that I will talk about in the strategy class, is strong circles. And your strong circles there's different layers to that of your strong circles. So when an organization, there's personal strong circles and then there's an organizational strong circle. When an organization has a strong circle, you get to look at who are the folks in your network that you need to be connected to. You probably are, or you're probably not connected to who you need to connect to. That is part of your strategy, because if you're not connected to the right people, you're not going to get funding. And so for me, I was able to tap into who's a part of my network. Okay, who do I need to talk to? Who do I need to meet with? How do I build this aspect of it? Because I was able to see, this part right here is not strong. I know I need this and I know I need that, but I'm not getting that. So those circles are very important about who you put in your circle. Not who you have in your circle, but who do you put in your circle? And so that's one of the techniques that I will teach in the strategy class. And that doesn't matter if you're an aeronautics company or if you're an electrical company or if you're a nonprofit that works with families. There's always going to be some type of strategy around how you build your strong circle that's going to be effective to you. And that's why I have people work through that, because I say, like, my strategy may not work for you because my strategy is based on me, based on my organization. There's certain things that as an individual I bring to my entity that you can't bring to your entity because you're not me. But there's things that you bring to your entity that I can't bring because I'm not you. And so how do we identify what those things are? And one last thing that I would say is that we oftentimes sleep on how important it is as an individual to have that empathetic approach, that empathetic spirit to things. Like people want to dictate, yell, scream, treat people like dirt, and then wonder why nobody wants to support what they have to do. And it's like, well, let's step back for a second. You're talking about people, you're running, like, they forget that those things impact their business. And so I don't care how great of a grant you write, if you're a bad person and you're a mean person or you're a hateful person. And this is why I always go back to this balancing of being harmonious, because if you're miserable, people are going to feel that, and they might work with you once or twice, but at some point it's going to run out because they're going to get sick and tired of dealing with your attitude. so I want people to understand, like, I call myself a chief business educator. I call myself business educator. I break it down in layman's terms. I break it down in realness, because there's things that I talk about that people will never talk about in a grant class.
Right.
They just won't, because they think that, oh, they might get offended. I don't care if you get offended.
Right.
As a matter of fact, get offended, because if you don't get offended, you're not going to change.
Exactly.
And if you want to change, then you're going to allow somebody in the space that you trust, that is not there to tear you down, but somebody who's trying to help build you up. And they're not going to lie to you and tell you how great you are. They're going to say to you, you are doing well, but here's some areas where we got to focus on, because you have some opportunities for growth.
Right. And you're absolutely right. And I'm going to ask you about the master class, but I have this last question.
Yes.
Now, when you talked about people and their attitude when it comes to writing grants, or looking for grants. Do you think that kind of works with people? For instance, you're a good person, but you work with someone that has a bad attitude or has a bad reputation. Do you think funding for particular grants would hold those type of people back?
Yes.
Because I know people that have great organizations, great nonprofits, but who they're linked to causes, people to have pause.
And that's because most people don't want to do the work.
Right.
And I say this in all, like, people, please don't take offense to this, but I got to say it the way it comes to me.
Go.
People are lazy, and they want this microwave response and reaction. So if I know you, even if you have bad things about you, I will work with you because you can do X. I don't want to do the work to find somebody that might have the same skill set or better, because it's too much work, or I don't want to offend you by not working with you. Well, if the mission is that important to you, and that's why that I talk about that passion and that strong why. My kids are more important to me than somebody's feelings getting hurt. So I am not going to work with you just because I like you if I think you're going to hinder me from growing, because I got to think about what's best for my kids. And so I can't take it personal. And it also requires us to have a level of growth that we can have very honest conversations with people. Like, I've had to have conversations with people that I love dearly and tell them I can't work with you. I'm sorry, I cannot work with you because you do this, that, and the third, or you have this track record, or you have been around this, or this is your brand, and I can't have that brand tainted with my brand. I'm a woman of God. I can't have people on my feed and they see all kind of stuff hanging out and doing all that on their feed because I'm following you. Like, no, that can't happen. And so I've had to have those hard conversations with people that I love, and they love me, and we respect one another. But I'm not going to go along to get along, right? And so you've got to have enough in you, and I'm not talking to you directly, but to our folks who are listening, that you have to have enough belief in what it is that God called you to do, that you stand for something or you will fall for anything. That's just the reality. We've all heard that saying. And so I don't want people to get short-sighted or myopic about the fact that, yes, the funding is there now, but what are you doing? Like, what sacrifices are you making to get that quick dollar that's going to cost you a large dollar in the long term? I'd rather take the short dollar now and get the long dollar later, right? And so people don't think about the legacy and the impact of that legacy by who you choose to be around.
Say that one more time.
People don't think about your legacy and the impact of your legacy by who you choose to be around and associate. Yes. People don't think about their legacy and who can impact their legacy by the people that you choose to be around and let them taint what you're doing.
That is, I agree with you 100%.
Yes.
And that is so awesome. Now, one last thing. Yes. I keep saying that, one last thing. But for those that's interested and that's watching us, that's interested in wanting to be part of your masterclass or want to reach out to Latonia Monroe-Naylor, consultant, give us your contact information and give us a little bit about when you're going to have this masterclass.
Yeah, so I'm having 2 sessions. Okay. I have one on May 4th and May 11th. They are tied together. It's a 6-hour session. So there's 3 hours on each Saturday. And then I have some on, I think it's May 20th through the 24th. And those are lunch and learn sessions. Okay. So those are from 12 o'clock to 1:15, Monday through Friday. And again, it equals out to 6 hours. The cost of it is $247. Okay. And for people who are in my Mission Rich Academy, it's free. So folks might want to look into joining the Academy after the class, because we do master classes on a regular. And if they're in the Academy, they get to attend those classes at no cost.
Now, is this in person or is it?
It's on Zoom.
It's on Zoom.
It's on Zoom, okay. Because I have some folks from Arkansas, some folks from Arizona, Atlanta that are joining. And I can't travel all over to where they are right now. Right. I will someday. Y'all will see me in Arkansas and everywhere else soon. But for now, it is on Zoom, and I am open to engagement. So I do have a church that I'm looking at working with in Atlanta, who somebody is trying to work on getting me out there to run some classes for them. So I am definitely open to bookings if people want to pull me into their church or their nonprofit and come down. I'm definitely more than happy to do that. However, for now, just online. And the set, like I said, it's 6 hours jam-packed of information. They'll have templates that they'll take with them. And if folks go to my social media, Monroe-Naylor LLC, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Okay. And I think we're now getting ready to be on TikTok. So that's going to be interesting. Okay. That's going to be fun. And then also MonroeNaylor.com. And my number is 413-707-2760. That's my office number that they can call and get more information.
Well, you know that I'm going to throw this out there. We would love to have you on True Vine Radio.
Absolutely.
I mean, hey, you can have Monroe, your consultant.
Yes.
On a show. We would love to. I mean, definitely, we can always talk about it.
Absolutely.
But I do that out there, like,
yes.
Yes, definitely. But listen.
Talk to me about it.
It's been awesome interview.
Thank you.
Thank you so much just for the opportunity.
You're welcome.
I mean, this has been so amazing. I hope you guys enjoyed it. But before we leave,
yes,
for those that's been watching,
mm-hmm.
those that will be listening when we convert this to and put it on True Vine Radio as well, and they are stuck.
Yeah.
And they saying, you know what, Lord, if you did it for Latonia,
mm-hmm.
I know you can do it for me.
Absolutely.
But Lord, help me with my unbelief.
Yes.
Help me with my own confidence
mm-hmm.
in myself. Help me with that low self-esteem or whatever is holding me back. What is it? What can you tell people who are stuck? They want to give up. They have a heart.
Yes.
I mean, they want to get up and they have a heart's desire. Can you just speak to them?
That is such a good question. I mean, I just want to say that anybody who is feeling like you're in a place of stagnation, place of complacency, know that the fact that you're feeling that is power enough. A lot of times people don't even realize that they're stuck or that they're complacent. So when you realize that, that is one step in the right direction, and just seek God and ask God for guidance. Ask God to give you an understanding of how to receive his guidance and his discernment that he has placed around you and within you. And furthermore, look for people in your life, whether it's close or not, that you see some things about them that you say to yourself, those are some aspects of aspects of my life that I am not strong in, and they are, whether it's your marriage, whether it's your business or whatever. There's always people that are waiting for you to say, hey, would you mind being my mentor? Or can I learn something? Can we meet? Can we have lunch together? And I'm more than willing to share and give you that guidance. Your pastor, somebody that can give you not just the natural, but also the spiritual fulfillment that you need right now. Because God has a plan for you, and he didn't design for you to be alone doing this.
That is amazing. What else can I say? This has been a great opportunity. Again, Latonia, I want to thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. Anytime. I appreciate it.
I mean, because I know everybody that's watching and those that will be listening to this are going to be touched by just your words, the love that you have. And I can see the love that you have for people.
Thank you.
You want to see people win.
I do.
You want to see people win. So again, please go ahead and pick up Latonia Monroe-Naylor's book, and it's called Mission Rich and Profit Powered, a guide to transforming your passion work into a fully funded business. You can also go and check out Parent Villages at parentvillages.org.
Yes.
And you can go to Latonia Monroe-Naylor Consultant. She's about to be on TikTok, you said.
Yes.
But she's on Facebook. She's on Instagram, LinkedIn. LinkedIn. I'm about to say Linkopedia. LinkedIn. She's just all over the place, and I know the Lord is going to open up more doors for her as he's already been blessing her. But Hey, like he told Abraham, I will bless you and I will make you a blessing. I want to thank everyone that tuned in to Candid Conversations over coffee with my special guest, Latonia Monroe-Naylor. And we're going to leave you with the music video from Chappella Rabess with her song, Sacrifice of Praise. I want to say I love you. So does the Lord. Everyone have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chappella Rabess, and I hope you enjoyed your time listening to Candid Conversations over coffee with no one other than Tracy Hill. The video that you are about to watch is my latest single called Sacrifice of Praise. I pray that this song blesses your heart as it has blessed me, and also that it blesses you to where you can remember and reflect on what God has done in your life, just giving him praise. Amen. Have a blessed day.
We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we lift our hearts unto you, oh Lord. We give you thanks for all that you've done for us. Lord, receive this sacrifice of praise. Lord, receive this sacrifice of praise. Come on, we lift our hands. We lift our hearts unto you, Lord. We give you thanks for all that you've done for us. Lord, receive this sacrifice of praise. Oh, Lord, receive this sacrifice of praise unto you.